Hello, welcome to this overview on the Export Market Development Grant that is part of the ESS BIZTOOLS product packages available for accountants, business advisors and bookkeepers to utilise to deliver an outstanding range of advisory services to your SME clients. I'm Peter Towers, founder and managing director of ESS BIZTOOLS. I hope you're having a wonderful day. What is the Export Market Development Grant? It's an Australian government grant that's available to SME exporters and some Australian-based businesses offering services to overseas residents. Applicants must have an Australian business number. They can be an individual, a company, an association or cooperative, a partnership, a trust, as long as they've all got an Australian origin and Australian people involved. So it's not restricted just to being a company like so many other grants are. This covers virtually every type of SME business operator. The business must have been conducted by the same ABN number for the last 2 years, and applicants must have a minimum annual turnover in 2023-24 for Tier 1, and I'll explain what the tiers are in a moment, $100,000, Tier 2, $500,000, and Tier 3, $1 million. The maximum turnover that an applicant can have is $20 million. Applicants must have the capacity to spend at least $20,000 per financial year of their own money on their proposed marketing activities. Applicants must have a high-quality plan to market for marketing or promoting eligible products in a foreign country, which is specific to their business and the tier that they are applying for. And these businesses must all be exporting goods or services from Australia to overseas countries, or supplying services in Australia to overseas residents, people visiting Australia from overseas, and they've incurred costs in promoting their business activities to those overseas people. This grant opens on the 12th of November 2024, or the latest instalment of this grant opens on that date, Tuesday, 12th of November 2024. This is called round 4 because this is the 4th round of the new type of export market development grant that was announced 3 years ago. Prior to that, businesses who were exporting turnovers under 20 million, the same deal basically, all types of SMEs could apply, basically had to go out and spend their own money first. So they'd spend it on export marketing activities in accordance with the legislation, and then they'd submit a claim, in effect, to Austrade, the government department that administers this program, and they would decide within Austrade whether that expenditure qualified for support under the program, and the applicant, as long as there was enough money available, would get a reimbursement up to 50% of their expenditure. That's all changed now. So round 4 is the 4th time the new program's been operating, where, similar to all other federal government grants, the business has to apply in advance. This is what we're going to do, and this is what we're applying for, and there are 3 tiers that the applications can be lodged in. So we'll go through all that shortly. But the important message is the government will be opening the website to accept applications from 10 a.m. AEDT on Tuesday, the 12th of November. Now, one of the big problems with this grant is the federal government allocates a specific sum of money and says that's it. When that's all been allocated by Austrade, there's no further money. So if you've got clients who are interested in being involved in making an application because they are exporters of goods or services or supplying services to overseas residents visiting Australia, then they need to try to make sure that their application is lodged on the 12th of November or shortly thereafter, because Austrade is saying that the applications will be offered in the order of which people submitted their applications. And once the money has been fully allocated, there is no additional funds available. So this grant period is for 2 financial years. This is unusual, 2 financial years. So we're talking about 2025-26 and 2026-27. Now, the objectives are to support more SMEs to become exporters, to support existing exporters to expand their export activities. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on when we talk about Tier 3s initiatives in these 2 years. And support the supply of eligible services in Australia to foreign persons. So that's people in Australia offering leisure activities, trips to the Barrier Reef, trips to the rainforest, trips to the Red Centre, going into parks, going to museums, all sorts of activities that people from overseas are interested in viewing when they're in Australia. They will be paying fees, and presumably the Australian businesses are spending money to promote their tours, their museum, their fantastic rainforest or parklands or whatever they're promoting. And they're spending money to do that. So assistance available can be in one of 3 tiers. So Tier 1 is for applicants who are ready to export and or ready to start exporting or promoting eligible products to foreign markets for the first time. They cannot have exported previously. So they're beginners. But they must have appropriate skills in marketing products in a foreign country. Now, the way they establish that is to supply evidence that they've successfully completed a recognised export training activity, and there's details there of a website they can go to find that, and or an approved test set by Austrade. So your client needs to be familiar and expert in overseas marketing and selling of products. So Tier 1, the minimum grant that Austrade will make available is $20,000 in the financial year, but the maximum is $30,000. And bear in mind, we're talking about 2 financial years in this round, so the maximum could well be $60,000 for a Tier 1 applicant. Tier 2, applicants must be exporting within existing markets. So they've created some markets in overseas countries and they're continuing to export. They're wanting to improve, to offer more services. So they're exporting and promoting eligible products, and they want to seek to expand those activities during this next 2-year period. The applicant has to establish, though, that they've established some export revenue, because they've already been doing this. They're not new to it, which is commensurate with the size of their business and the value of their product or service. In the ESS BIZTOOLS product package, we've included provision for you to make sure you've recorded what the total sales were in 23-24, what they were in the year before, and what the export sales in both years, and to show the percentage of export sales out of the total figure, to try to illustrate to Austrade that the business has been achieving a growth in export sales. I cannot find anywhere where Austrade specifically stated what percentage they're looking for, but we'll probably find out as applications go in. But businesses must be showing that they're expanding new activities. It's just not the same thing again this year as what was done the previous year or in these next 2 years. It has to be something different. Now, the minimum grant is $20,000, but the maximum for Tier 2 is $50,000. So obviously, looking at 2 financial years, we're looking at $100,000 potential input from the federal government. Now, tier 3, applicants must be exporting to new markets. Very important terminology, new markets. So they're already exporting and promoting. They're seeking to expand their export activity. So in effect, they've got to make a strategic shift in the marketing or promotion of eligible products. And you'll see what I mean by the strategic shift in a moment. The objective of tier 3 is to support SMEs to diversify. That's the strategic shift. Their export activities to new markets that align with their export diversification plan. And these new markets are identified as key markets that the government and Austrade have identified. So it's not up to your client to select what the key markets are going to be. The government and Austrade have nominated 30 countries that they have identified as the key markets for the tier 3 applicants in the Export Market Development Grant. Applicants may be eligible for tier 3 grant if they meet all eligibility criteria and they're exporting products demonstrated by export revenue. So we need to do the same analysis of sales for the last few years, total sales, what was the export sales, what was the percentage of export sales to the total sales. And I just believe that your client should be showing an improvement in that figure. There may be reasons why there was not a growth in the percentage, because maybe a lot more sales were made in Australia than what had been made in previous years. That's something that might have to be argued in the application. Now, the minimum grant for a tier 3 applicant is $20,000. That's the same for the 3 tiers, but the maximum grant is $80,000 for a financial year. So in this round of applications, of course, that would go to $160,000 over a 2-year period. Now, the total assistance that a SME can obtain from the Export Market Development Grant over a number of years is $770,000. It's a lot of money. But bear in mind that your client has to match that. So they've also got to have, over the period of time, $770,000 of their money that they have contributed to this process. Now, the application order doesn't have to be 1, then 2, then 3. Your client can start at any level. They could come in and start at level 3, but it'd be a good idea to make sure that they have completed the export training course before they apply for tier 3, because I'm sure that will be pulled up by Austrade, who are saying that everyone who's participating in the Export Market Development Grant must have some familiarity with exporting. They've undertaken the training course. So businesses can apply for a grant tier at any time, depending on the business need. But applicants can only apply for 1 tier per round. So I assume that what that means in this round, which is taking 2 financial years into account, if you're applying as tier 3, you're applying for 2 years of tier 3 or 2 years of tier 2, if that's what you're applying for. Now, the grant years is a maximum of 8 financial years that a business can receive support under this program, but they do not have to be consecutive. So you can have a gap year, if you wish, at one stage. Or perhaps the business needs to go back and do some research and development and then develop some new products and services to start selling overseas. And if that's the case, bear in mind that there could be some further work for you there to help the client to obtain the research and development tax offset, but they will have to have become a company. And obviously they can still be a company to obtain Export Market Development Grant, but as well as they don't have to be a company, but to obtain the research and development tax offset, you must be a company. So it's well worth looking at, because the research and development support can really lead a company into a whole range of scaling up operations, especially if they've developed a good product. So the applicant is required to submit a plan to market. This is a business plan for an export operation, but it must be unique to the business. and directly relates to the planned export promotional activities. It should be high quality, and all mandatory questions that are contained within the Austrade application form must be completed with sufficient detail. Make sure your client doesn't just want to spend 5 minutes on this exercise. It's a serious part of this overall application, the plan to market. So that includes details of the eligible products that your client's producing. What's the proposed promotional activity? And does it dovetail in with events that are happening in the targeted overseas countries? It would be great if your client can actually nominate the various events or fairs or trade shows in their targeted countries that they would like to be able to go to and participate in, because that's what this grant is about. They need to identify their business goals. What are they doing all this for? What's the end result going to be? What's it going to do to their business? What's it going to do to employee numbers and so on? Because remember, we're dealing with a government department that has to report to the senior people in Canberra that these activities, like the Export Market Development Grant, are assisting the country, are assisting with employment, are assisting with generating income coming back into Australia, which in the end ends up being wealth within Australia. So in the plan to market, you have to identify how the SME will measure their export success and what's happened in previous years. Don't assume that Austrade's got all this. They want it repeated back to them. So what happened last year? What happened the year before? What was the expenditure on the promotional activities, and what was the financial result? What were the sales? So the plan to market, as I said earlier, is very similar to a business plan. It needs to be a living business management document that may need to be adapted for changes from time to time, just like a business plan does. But there needs to be some serious thinking go into the planning of this document. Otherwise, I'd have fears that your client will not succeed in this grant application. This is a very competitive grant. And if your client's going to start the application process, they have to be applying a winner outlook attitude that they're going to win that grant. They have to make sure they complete the application properly. But it needs to be a unique document. It's your client's document, not someone else's that you or they have tarted up a bit and changed a few names and details on. It needs to be a document that incorporates the activity, the vibrancy, the developments that's going on in your client's business when it comes to exporting activities. And that will be very obvious when the final document is prepared. So the eligible markets are the world except New Zealand, I'm very sorry to say, but New Zealand is treated as being our cousins just across the ditch. And the Australian government will not supply funds to support trade with or increase trade with New Zealand. I think that's disappointing, but that's the way it goes. And also the 3 or 4 countries around the world that the Australian government has issued sanctions against. Your clients can export to them if they wish, but they will not receive any support under the Export Market Development Grant. Okay, but the eligible markets for the Tier 3 applicants that I mentioned before are the countries that are listed here. Now, Tier 1 and Tier 2 have got no eligible markets defined. They can pick any country in the world except New Zealand and those 3 or 4 countries that the Australian government has banned. But in the Tier 3 application, these key markets are identified, and we've got them on the screen there now. Bangladesh, Brunei, India, Singapore, Cambodia, Italy, Taiwan, Canada, Japan, Thailand, China, Laos. I say, wow, there's some big countries here. There's countries in this list that I thought Australia was already selling a lot of goods to. The government's obviously saying, we think there's room for more. We're going to encourage our Tier 3 applicants to put a lot of resources into these 30 countries. Fiji, Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, France, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Germany. That's a fair representation out of Europe, isn't it? Specifically mentioned earlier. Papua New Guinea, the United States, Hong Kong, Philippines, Vietnam. So they're the key markets. They're the markets that the tier 3 applicants must be concentrating on their promotional activities. It's no use putting in Brazil or Argentina or Chile. It has to be those markets that are specified there. Grant funds must be used for promotional activities to market eligible products in foreign countries. And also the grant funds can be used for that tier 1 training requirement for someone to have a better overall understanding of export market activities. Now, eligible products must be substantially of Australian origin. Now, there's a few definitions of what all that means, and we've included that in our product package, which is obviously part of the deal that a subscriber, which hopefully your firm will decide to become one, will then have access to. But it looks at goods, services, events, intellectual property, know-how, and software. It's a fair range of products, isn't it? And for the eligible services businesses in Australia who are supplying services to overseas residents when they visit Australia, has to be substantially Australian origin. And that is divided into 2 groups: the eligible tourism services and eligible services other than tourism. So the eligible tourism services cover anything to do with overseas visitors to Australia. Passenger transport by land, passenger transport by water or air, overnight accommodation, unless it's for a business purpose or study, tours, paid admission to places like outstanding natural features, a park, nature reserve or botanical garden, a wildlife sanctuary or a zoo, a museum, a craft centre, art gallery, somewhere that provides an amenity appropriate to tourism, an event. Services at a place, the main purpose of which is to provide a venue and associated facilities, restaurant or cafe, licensed casino. So it's covering a wide range of activities, isn't it? Other than tourism is assets that are utilised for creating services for tourists or for businesses, activities in Australia that overseas residents are coming to look at, and each situation will have to be summarised in the application. It could be events like trade shows held in Australia, but there needs to be more than one overseas visitor turn up, because Austrade wants to know how many overseas visitors were present. So you would want to make sure that there's going to be other people turn up if your client's trying to claim a significant amount of money on that event. So the eligible expenses, let's look at this. So up to now, we have looked at the eligibility, their SMEs, turnover has to be under $20 million, but they all need to achieve a minimum turnover. If they're going for tier 1, that's $100,000, tier 2, $500,000, tier 3, $1 million. So we got that set out. They need to be dealing with Australian products or services. And we're now through to what they can claim as expenses. So there has to be a designated connection between what they're doing. If they're a tier 1 applicant, they can claim the costs of the export training course. So the eligible expenses could be maintaining a representative in a foreign country. Okay, so they need a representative in an overseas country. It could be short trips to a foreign country, up to 21 days. But this grant will only cover economy airfares, and we don't have to submit hotel bills and food bills and all that, because the maximum you can claim is $350 a day, and that's basically the rate. So that's what you get for you if you're away for 21 days, 21 times $350. If you spend more, well, you cannot claim it on this grant. It might be able to be claimed on your income tax return if it's all for business, but the grant will only supply Australian dollars $350 a day. It might be engaging consultants, and there's some definitions in the rules as to the engagement of consultants. You could have your client bringing foreign buyers to Australia to look at the supply chain, to look how the product's produced, to look as to where it originates from. So expenses of up to 21 days to bring a foreign visitor to Australia, again, only economy fares. It might be soliciting for business in foreign countries. It might be sending free samples, as long as they are a free sample and there's no obligation for that recipient to return that sample product back to Australia if they don't want it or anything like that. And the maximum expenditure on the total transportation of that sample is $15,000 in total. It might be promotional and advertising material. It can be the development of intellectual property rights. There's a few clauses appropriate to that you need to read, and those export training activities for Tier 1. So applications for this grant, you need to complete the pre-program planning requirements to ensure that the applicant is ready and they fit within all right on that $770,000 total claim and 8 grant years. And the application has to be completed online. You've then got to enclose the necessary documents. We'll look at those in a moment, and submit the application online, as I just said. So the application needs 2 years of financial statements, evidence that the business can spend a matching amount of money, which has to be at least $20,000, to what they are nominating as the grant funds they'd like to receive. So that if they're a Tier 2 applicant and they're saying they would like to apply for $50,000, they're going to be able to supply information in the application to substantiate that they can supply $50,000 for each of the 2 years themselves. They've got to submit evidence of compliance with Australian taxation laws. Number one, they've lodged their tax returns. Number two, they've paid the taxation that's been billed to them from that taxation return. Tier 1 must provide evidence of export readiness. Tier 2 and Tier 3 must provide evidence of export sales for that calculation we talked about before. And service providers are going to provide details of the services that they're providing other than tourism. And the plan to market document must outline how the applicant plans to undertake new marketing and promotional activities. So there's a fair bit in this overall process. Now, if your client is successful, Austrade will send a grant agreement and so, okay, we've looked at your proposal. We're happy that you've selected some countries, if you're a Tier 3 applicant, from our list of 30 countries, and we're happy with what you're proposing to do there. So that the government's going to make available to you $80,000 for each of those 2 years. Here's the grant agreement. Your client cannot change anything in that agreement other than insert their name, their signature, and the date. That's basically it. And they've got 21 days to respond. And a warning that I'd make to you is don't let your client delay the signing of that grant agreement, because Austrade will be under pressure by late applicants, which they always seem to get. If they think they've already allocated all the money, and they will know if they have, they are then waiting on each of those firms that they've sent their grant agreements to sign them and return them. If they don't sign and return them within 21 days, Austrade is very likely to reallocate that money to someone else. That might have been a late applicant. So make sure your clients understand that. The grant payments will be made direct into the applicant's nominated bank account. They nominate that in the application form. And there's no way that there can be any additional payments made by Austrade. So if they've agreed to pay your client $50,000 as a Tier 2 applicant, just because what the expenditure was proposed for has gone up in price. So really, it's now going to cost $62,000. Austrade will not pay that extra $12,000 because it's outside their legal rights to do so. And secondly, they will not have the money because, as I've said before, they are allocated a specific sum of money to spend on this program, and every year they spend it all. They never give any of it back to Treasury. So they spend it all on supplying these sort of services to assist exporters. When applications are made for payment, milestone reports will be required to be submitted. Now, the BizAid by ESS BizTools. We are quite proud of offering this service, but at the same time, we are offering it because we're very much aware that there's significant problems in the SME community. And I couldn't think of a better grant to associate with when we're launching our BizAid by ESS BizTools program, because what we're talking about is the total SME market have got great difficulties at present. Interest rates are high, inflation's high, business failures are very high. I think all these people, all SMEs, require more input by qualified accountants to assist them in their business endeavours. We're calling that the virtual CFO service. It might only be an hour a week or 3 or 4 hours a week, whatever works out, but your clients need accounting input. And to make this a lot easier, we have developed individual components of our overall product packages that we're saying, if we make that available to you at a significantly lower price than you paying a couple of $1,000s for one of our product packages, which is where that component's embedded, we've taken it out of the product package and we're saying we will sell that to you for 12 months use for a significantly lower amount. So that's what we're talking about. We estimate, first of all, to give you an idea what I think the income could be based on my experience as an accountant over many years. I think you could earn $500 to $1,250 per client per assignment in delivering the export market development grant services. And our offer to you is you can subscribe for this component, the export market development grant component of ESS BizTools, for $250 plus GST, and you've got a license to use that product then for 12 months. And you can use it with as many clients as you wish. So that's the offer, and hopefully you're ready to take action. You can immediately go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, click on packages and pricing, and then click on the individual products. And one of them will be the export market development grant overview, so that you can complete the subscription order form. And we will be in contact the next day, and you'll be underway in offering those services to your clients. If you need any more information, please send us an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and we will respond to your questions, or you can make a phone call if you like, 0747241118. Incidentally, in that package you're going to get access to, you get a range of other material that's part of our training program, so you and your colleagues in your firm can understand our vision on how you equip your people with the knowledge to be able to deliver advisory services to your clients. So you get that because we know that you need that if you're going to be advocates for advisory services to SMEs. But you also receive our Business Plus newsletter, which is a special newsletter we produce every month of the year. It's got 4 to 6 articles in each edition that are targeted at SMEs to have them contact their accountant about an idea. It might be the export market development grant. It might be tradies charge out rate calculators. It might be improving their fiscal skills so that they don't get into problems with their cash flow. And these are all services that within ESS BizTools, we have product packages that accountants, bookkeepers, and business advisors can use to deliver value-adding services to your SME clients. All that you do, or a subscriber does, is put your name and address on the email and send it out to your clients. And people then get response from their SMEs. That's how ESS BizTools is working successfully around Australia. So you get that as well. If you need any more information, please send me an email. As I said before, peter@essbiztools.com.au. I hope you have a better idea now of how the Export Market Development Grant works. I look forward to hearing from you. Cheers. Have a great day. Goodbye.